Hey, what's up guys? It's tpen here with the Forward to the Past YouTube channel, and I'm here bringing you guys the beginner's guide to PvP and class picking in WoW Classic. So, a lot of people in WoW Classic aren't going to have the experience that a lot of people are going to come into the game with, so I wanted to bring a new light to the game, because a lot of people are only talking about the min-maxing, top of the level stuff, so I wanted to help the beginners and casuals out with this guide. So, here we go. Here we go. So, first is a list of definitions for those who are really new to WoW Classic or WoW in general. I know that this is tedious for those who have played WoW before, but some people are playing WoW Classic for the first time, and it's being brought in by their friends. So I wanted to bring this here, and you can come back here anytime. There'll be a timestamp in the description to come back to the definitions. So here we go. So here's the introduction to PvP. If you're never able to play vanilla WoW, or were either too busy or too young to fully experience it, or maybe just you wanted to get into PvP in Classic and you don't know where to start, this is the guide for those people, and others too if you're looking to gain information. In Classic, not all the classes are created equal. I know that's surprising. Some classes do things better than others, but most importantly, every class is fun. So what we're covering in this guide is how PvP gear is acquired and the rank 14 system, how well each class supports entry-level players, what class is the best at displaying top-level skill, what classes require extra assistance outside of their kit. So in Classic, they have a different PvP ranking system, and some people really enjoy it and some people despise it. But personally, I like it. So, in Vanilla, the way to get gear was through the ranking system, where when you got an honorable kill, still is a thing in current, you get an honorable kill, you get honor, and how much depends on the level of the target in the ranking system and in the game. So at the end of the week, your honor will get turned into rank points, and they will determine where you get ranked from rank 1 to 14. And the higher you rank, the more you have to play to maintain that rank, because you lose 20% of your RP off the top each week that you had before. So with great time consumption is great reward. As you rank up, the more gear you will get, and you finish the blue set at rank 10, and you finish the purple set at rank 14, which is the highest rank, and you finish with the weapon there. So here's the rank rewards. Each rank you rank up gives you a new title and a new item. Rank 2 gives you your PvP trinket, which is really big, and then of course, rank 10 finishes your gear set, and rank 14 finishes your gear set there. The only problem with the ranking system is there's only one weapon on it, and that's at rank 14. So, WoW Classic is going to be BYOW, bring your own weapon, unless you plan to spend a lot of time getting rank 14. So, here we are into our introduction to class selection. When people talk about class selection, they're usually talking about the end game rating and fully geared, best in slot PvP, where some classes are at a disadvantage, more so at a disadvantage in rating. Example, balanced Druids underperform in rating, but they're a really fun and good class in PvP. So every class and spec in WoW Classic is super fun in PvP, but some will be a lot more beginner friendly than others. And remember, of course, play what you want to play. If a certain class isn't what you want it to be in this guide, doesn't mean don't play it. Every class is fun, and Classic is all about having fun. So if your heart's set on a Paladin, and I say Paladins aren't that good or whatever, even though I'm not going to say that, definitely play a Paladin if you want to. So, here we are on our class grading scale. The classes will be graded on their skill floor and skill ceiling. So they're not going to be graded on how good they are, because each class can perform as well as a player wants them to. It's just some require more or less skill. And in this guide, classes will be graded on a 1 to 10 scale based on their difficulty for the skill ceiling and the skill floor. So 1's the least difficult, and 10 is the most difficult. So a lower number might be better for you if you're worried about difficulty. So the skill floor will be affected, by your gear and profession reliance, your leveling PvP, and the rotation you use of your spells. The ceiling will be affected by your endgame PvP, your gear and profession reliance to a larger degree, your rotation, your spell kits, and then gaps that you might have in your rotation or kit that could make it harder for you to play your class. So, here we are into our first class, the Hunter. It's considered by the most to be the easiest class to level, but make no mistake, the Hunter has lots of high skill things that they can do in PvP, and a great Hunter is completely different from a bad Hunter. So there's a lot of skill that a Hunter can show. They have a really engaging rotation, including trap placement, pet micro, wing clip and concussive shock hiding, and feign death. One problem with the Hunter is they have a dead zone, where you can no longer shoot enemies because they're too close, but they're too far away to melee. So you have to really play around that dead zone, otherwise you can get screwed. But they have lots of fun utility and crowd control. They're the definition of easy to learn and hard to master. And the Hunters have many interesting and useful non-combat abilities that can help them in PvP. And they have good mobility overall. So, Hunters are really easy to play at first, but they allow players to take them to the max. So they have a skill ceiling of 9. Next up we have the Rogue. So they have the most stun abilities in the game, and they have very high crowd control. They have extremely high damage without gear reliance, which is really big, and stealth will allow you to pick and choose your fights. And they have tons of abilities in their rotation, but it can become a little too much for newer players, especially with stealth, going in and out of stealth with your stuns, your poisons, stuff like that. But poison crafting and lockpicking are class-specific professions, so that could be a negative or positive depending on if you want to spend time crafting and lockpicking. And they have lots of powerful big cooldowns. And they also have really good mobility, and they can kill a cloth-wearing class in a stun lock, so they can be really deadly in PvP. Next up we have the Mage. Mages are absolute beasts in classic WoW. They have the most utility in the game, and they're tied with rogues for the most crowd control. They do have the lowest HP in the game though, so they can get one shot by rogues and warriors if they're not careful. They have lots of room to express skill, and they have a huge spell kit, and they have an ability for almost every situation. They have really big cooldowns, and Palm Pyro Mages, Presence of Mind, Pyroblast, is a talent build you can go. They can one-shot people. And they also have great mobility as well. So mages have a skill floor of 5, so they're really hard to start playing, and they have a skill ceiling of 10, but mages can be one of the most rewarding classes to play because of the fact that they can do so many amazing things. Next up we have the Priest, and each race of the Priest gets a unique ability. So dwarves get a fear ward, so that's really cool about priests. So make sure you research your races, before you choose a priest if you are rolling a priest. Most priests choose to heal with holy or discipline specs, but shadow priests are monsters in PvP, and they can melt faces with big dots and big mind blasts. Shadow priests do lose survivability because they can't heal in shadow form, and it's really expensive mana wise to swap in and out of shadow form, and it can make you go out of mana really easy. So that is a problem with shadow priests, but they do tons of damage. Smite priests are another build of priests you can do, and they're really fun in PvP, and they have really big spell crits, and they can also focus on fully healing or off healing as well. But priests have poor mobility, and they have decent crowd control. So they have a skill floor of 2, really easy to start getting into a priest. And for their ceiling, A Shadow Priest's skill ceiling will be around 6. Otherwise, it'll be a 4. So there is some skills to learn with a priest. Up next is the Warrior. The Warrior is one of the most interesting classes in Classic WoW because they have an extremely high damage potential, but they have lots of gaps in their spell kit. So they're very gear and engineering and other item reliant. So for Warriors, fast action potions, Goblin Rocket Helmet, and spell deflection, and other things like that, they're huge for a Warrior. They really help out. So Warriors will have a very engaging rotation because they stance between their stances to use their abilities. So for the Warrior, you might have an ability in defensive stance that you want to use that's not in battle stance. So as a Warrior, you have to manage your rage and manage your cooldowns, knowing which ability is coming up soon and when to switch stances. So really fun with their rotation. And they have tons of top end for skill. Because of their amazing rotation and all of the engineering and other items they have a really high top end for skill. And good Warriors are night and day from bad ones. With good gear, Warriors can easily one-shot Clothies, so you can feel like a madman as a Warrior. One problem is with Warriors, they can get kited very easily, so that's why you need some of that gear and engineering and other stuff, so you don't get CC locked by a Mage or a Hunter or something like that. But Warriors have good cooldowns. Their only problem is 3 of their biggest cooldowns are tied on the same cooldown, which is 30 minutes long. So basically, you get to choose one of 3 big cooldowns every 30 minutes, which can be annoying for a Warrior. They also don't have the most utility and the most crowd control, so you're lacking on that front. But personally, I'm going to be playing a Warrior. I like stance dancing, I like engineering, and I like their PvP. So I'm going to have fun with the Warrior. Up next is the Warlock. They have great utility, and their health stones are really big, and your friends in battlegrounds and stuff like that are going to be asking for them all the time. So pet sacrificing and pet micro, well, pet sacrificing is unique to the Warlock, but they also have pets like hunters, so they micro their pets as well. So they have a good rotation with pets in mind, and they have lots of dots and non-damaging curses as well. They have good damage, and soul shard farming can turn people away from the Warlock, as it costs soul shards to use some of your abilities and to cast some of your pets. So sometimes it's going to take longer for you to get into the fray because you need some soul shards to use your abilities. And they have very good crowd control. They do have poor mobility though, but their spell kit is full of abilities. And they have lots of good abilities to choose from. They're really good early in PvP without needing much gear, but as other classes gear up, they need to gear up as well. So they have a skill floor of 3 and a skill ceiling of 6. So they're pretty easy to get into, but pet sacking and needing quite a bit of gear in the end game is what's pushing Warlocks up to a 6 for me. So next we have the Druid. And the Druid is the jack of all trades of Classic. They can do a little bit of everything, and they have different abilities to do a little bit of everything. They have excellent mobility and a lot of crowd control reduction because they can switch forms to escape from snares and slows. Now onto the Feral Druid. They're basically a rogue with a little less damage and way more utility and healing. They have a very engaging rotation, which requires power swapping from cat to bear to human form for maximum DPS and healing. Feral is really fun and very underrated, and a good Feral can surprise people by the utility and damage that they can dish out and bring to a team. So a Druid skill floor is 6, because they do need gear to get going, and power swapping and healing and escaping from crowd control can be a lot for a new player. And their skill ceiling is an 8 as well, so they can show a good player. Next we have a Balanced Druid. The Balanced Druids are all about dirty Starfire crits. They can burst down targets extremely quickly with a good crit or two. They have good dots, and they have great healing because they're a druid. And they have a really great spell kit, again, because they're a druid. One problem with boomkins, though, is they run out of mana very quickly, and they do need some gear to get going. So balanced druid's skill floor basically is needing some crit gear. And their skill ceiling is a 5. Balanced druids have a lot at their disposal, but they're not as hard as a restoration or a feral druid. So onto the restoration druid. They're the kings of Warsong Gulch. The druid's the best class, and the restoration is the best spec for flag carrying. And they bring tons of utility and have excellent mobility, even greater than other classes because of stuff like nature swiftness. And they have great battleground healing. They have lots of heals over time that they can put on friendly targets, and they can hybrid feral and dish out some good damage as well. They have form swapping to get out of crowd control and to get their heals off. And they have nature swiftness, which allows an instant heal, damage, or crowd control ability. And an interesting thing about restoration druids is as a flag carrier, you get to learn Warsong Gulch jumps and tricks to get into the flag room, which is really cool. For a resto druid, their skill 4 is a 5, and their ceiling is a 10 for flag carrying. But non-flag carrying, it's going to be a 3 for the floor and a 7 for the ceiling. So restoration druids have a lot of interesting stuff that they can pull off. So they have a lot of skill ceiling. There's a lot of awesome things you can do as a resto druid. So up next is the Paladin. They have some very high damage, but they have some interesting things with them. They have proc abilities that are super satisfying to land, and they can destroy people. But they're random, so they might not proc and could cause you to lose the fight. They have really big cooldowns. Paladins have the most big cooldowns in the game, so that's really fun if you want to play a Paladin. They have lots of healing. Mana can be an issue for Paladins though, because they're usually not worrying about mana with their gear if they're DPS. They have great utility with their blessings and auras and other abilities such as that. And they're the only healer in plate, so if you're healing as a Paladin, it increases your survivability a lot. And as a DPS Paladin, you're auto attack reliant, so your rotation isn't very engaging, which could be a positive for some people, but most of the time is a negative, as sometimes you're waiting for an auto attack to go off with nothing else to do. So the skill floor for DPS is 4, because they do need some gear to get going. As a DPS Paladin, you need a pretty solid weapon. And their ceiling is a 4 as well. So again, with the auto attacks, there's not too much skill gap between it. But again, super fun. Having a low skill ceiling doesn't mean it's a great class. So for the healing, it's a 3 and a 5. So pretty solid healers as well. So up next, last but not least, is the Shaman. So, Shaman got split up into all 3 of their specs, with Elemental first. The Elemental Shaman has ridiculously high burst damage. They can kill people before they even know it hit them. They have a solid rotation, and with their different shock abilities that are used situationally, really good rotation, but most of the time you will use Frost Shock because it has really good crowd control. Enhancement Shamans are one of the most talked about classes and specs in Classic WoW. They can one-shot people with Lucky Wind Fury procs, but they need an amazing weapon to destroy those people. They're really auto-attack reliant like the DPS Paladin though, which can be, again, a negative or positive depending on the person. And last but not least is the Resto Shaman. They have great healing, and they have lots of utility, and they have big chain heals and other abilities they can bring to a party. And for all 3 classes, they have totems. And they provide great utility, buffs, damage, and crowd control. So, a lot of cool stuff with the Shaman. So for the Elemental Shaman, their skill floor is a 4, and their skill ceiling is a 7. So a lot of cool stuff you can do with the Elemental Shaman. And for the Enhancement Shaman, they actually have a 7 as a skill floor, because in order to rock enhancement you need good gear and good items, so that's for why it's that. And then for their skill ceiling, same as the DPS Paladin, really auto attack reliant, so that's why their ceiling is a 4. And for Resto, their skill floor is a 4 and their skill ceiling is a 6. A lot of stuff to do with the totems. Very engaging class to play. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. We have a 6-month sub for WoW. So to get people into WoW Classic, we have a 6-month sub giveaway on our Twitter. You can get more information on our Twitch as well. So I stream at tpen_FTTP, and our Twitter is at FTTP Guild. Thank you guys all for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the description, and I'll get right back to them. So thanks again for watching, and have a good day, and good luck in Classic.